The transport ship broke through the clouds of Prime, and Commander pressed her face against the cold window. Below her stretched a world of ice and snow. White mountains rose like teeth from the frozen ground. Dark forests covered the valleys. Everything looked cold and hard and unwelcoming. Was 32 years old. She had brown eyes and black hair that she kept tied back in a simple knot. She was not tall. She was not strong by human standards, but she had something that her superiors valued more than size or strength. She had patience. She had kindness. And she had a gift for understanding creatures that others found difficult. The Galactic Integration Corps had given her many strange assignments over the years. She had worked with the insect-like, teaching them how to communicate without violence. She had helped the water-dwelling learn to trust air breathers. But this assignment was different. This assignment scared her. They were not easy beings to understand. They looked like wolves that had learned to walk on two legs. They stood over 2 meters tall. Their fur was in silver and white. Their eyes were gold and sharp and always watching. They had claws that could tear through metal. They had teeth that could crush bone. And they had a culture built on strength and dominance and the harsh law of the pack. For 1,000 years they had been the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Their armies had conquered dozens of worlds. Their name made enemies shake with fear. But something had changed in recent years. Their generation of warriors was failing. The young cadets, called pups until they completed their training, were showing strange problems. They fought each other too much. They could not work together. They broke under pressure. The High Council had tried everything. They had made training harder. They had punished failure more severely. Nothing worked. The pups kept failing. The mighty military was growing weaker with each passing year. Then during the siege of Station, something happened that changed everything. A small group of human soldiers had held a position against impossible odds. They had been outnumbered 10 to 1. They should have died, but they had worked together with perfect trust. They had carried their wounded. They had shared their last food and water. They had fought and bled and won as one unit. The observers had never seen anything like it. How did these weak, soft creatures fight so well together? How did they trust each other so completely? The High Council swallowed their pride and asked for human help. And so was sent to Prime. The transport landed on a frozen platform outside the military academy, pulled on her thermal suit and stepped out into the bitter cold. The wind cut through her like a knife. Her breath turned to ice in the air. She had never felt cold like this before. A group waited for her. They stood in a line, tall and proud, their fur thick against the cold. At their front was the largest had ever seen. His fur was dark, almost black, and his golden eyes held no warmth at all. "I am pack leader," he said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "I am the senior instructor at this academy. I am told that you are here to teach us how to train our young." Bowed her head in respect. "I am Commander. I am grateful for the opportunity to work with your people." Did not bow back. He looked at her the way a wolf looks at a rabbit. "Let me be clear, human," he said. "I did not ask for you. The High Council sent you against my wishes. I do not believe that a prey species can teach predators how to fight." Kept her face calm. She had expected this. "I understand your concerns, pack leader. I hope to prove myself useful." "You may observe," continued. "You may watch our training methods, but you will not interfere. You will not speak to the pups. You will not touch them. Is this understood?" "Understood," said quietly. Turned and walked toward the academy without waiting for her. The other followed, picked up her bag and walked after them, her small human feet leaving shallow prints in the deep snow. The academy was a massive structure of black stone and ice. It had been built into the side of a mountain. Inside, the hallways were cold and dark. There were no decorations on the walls. There were no soft places to sit. Everything was hard and sharp and functional. A young led to her quarters. It was a small room at the far end of the academy, away from everyone else. The bed was a stone platform with a thin mat. The window looked out at a wall of ice. There was no heat. "This is where you will stay," the young said. He did not look at her. "Food will be brought to you. Do not wander the halls at night." Then he left and was alone. She sat down on the cold bed and looked around the empty room. She was far from home. She was surrounded by creatures who hated her. She had no authority, no friends, no support. But she had a mission. Somewhere in this academy there were young who were suffering. There were pups who were being broken by a system that did not understand them, and was going to help them, whether the adults wanted her to or not. She unpacked her bag slowly. She had brought books about culture. She had brought medical supplies. She had brought warm clothes and extra food. And she had brought something else, something small and simple. Ration bars, sweet ones, the kind that human soldiers shared with each other during long missions, the kind that tasted like home. Did not know how she was going to reach the pups. She did not know how she was going to change anything. But she knew one thing for certain: she was not going to give up. She lay down on the cold bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow her real work would begin. Tomorrow she would start watching, start learning, start finding a way. The wind howled outside her window. The ice creaked and groaned. And somewhere in the academy, young slept in cold barracks, dreaming of the trials that awaited them. Slept too, but her dreams were different. She dreamed of wolves running through snow, their voices raised in joy instead of anger. She dreamed of a pack that fought together instead of against each other. She dreamed of golden eyes that looked at her with trust instead of hate. It was a good dream, and was determined to make it real. 3 weeks passed on the frozen world of Prime. Every morning woke before the sun rose. She put on her warmest clothes and walked through the dark halls of the academy to the training grounds. She stood in the corner, silent and still, and she watched. The training was harsh. It was the harshest thing had ever seen. The pups were woken before dawn by loud horns and shouting instructors. They had only minutes to dress and run to the training yard. If they were late, they were punished. The punishment was always physical: extra running, extra fighting, no food. There were 12 pups in the group watched. They ranged in age from 12 to 15 years old. Their fur was still soft, not yet thick like the adults. Their eyes were still bright, though fear was slowly dimming them. Learned their faces first. Then she learned their names by listening to the instructors shout at them. There was a female with pale fur and gentle eyes. She was quick and smart, but she was not aggressive. The instructors called her weak. They made her fight the larger pups again and again. She always lost. She always got hurt, but noticed that she never complained. She simply picked herself up and tried again. There was the smallest pup in the group. His fur was light silver, almost white. He was thin and short, smaller than the others by a full head. The other pups mocked him constantly. They called him runt. They called him burden. They pushed him and tripped him and took his food. The instructors did nothing to stop this. In culture, the weak deserved no protection. There was Sora, a female with dark fur and wide, frightened eyes. She flinched every time an instructor raised their voice. She moved like a shadow, always trying to be invisible. Could see that she was smart, perhaps the of all the pups, but her fear held her back. She could not think clearly when she was afraid. And he was the largest of the pups, with thick fur and muscles that were already developing. His eyes were hard and angry. He was the one who bullied the most. He was the one who fought the hardest, who pushed the others down, who never showed mercy. The instructors praised him constantly. He was everything they wanted a warrior to be. But saw something the instructors did not see. She saw that was just as scared as the others. He was just better at hiding it. He hurt the smaller pups because he was afraid of being hurt himself. He dominated because he was terrified of being dominated. Every day, watched the training. She watched the pups run through the snow until they collapsed. She watched them fight each other with claws and teeth until blood stained the white ground. She watched them climb ice walls and swim in frozen lakes and carry heavy stones up mountain paths. And every day, she watched them break a little more. The method was simple: make the weak strong through suffering, make the individual hard through isolation. Let the pack sort itself out through competition. The strong would rise, the weak would fall. This was the natural way. This was the way. But it was not working. Saw what the instructors could not see. The pups were not becoming stronger. They were becoming more broken. They did not trust each other. They could not work together. When they faced group challenges, they fell apart. Each pup fought for themselves. No one helped anyone else. No one cared if a teammate fell behind. One cold morning, saw hiding behind a building. The young female was examining her arm, where a deep cut bled slowly. She had been injured in the morning fight, but she had said nothing. She was bandaging herself with strips torn from her own clothing. Wanted to help. She wanted to walk over and clean the wound and wrap it properly, but she remembered words. Do not speak to the pups. Do not touch them. So she stood in the shadows and watched struggle alone. That afternoon, she saw eating by himself behind the barracks. The other pups had taken his food again. He was eating snow, trying to fill his empty stomach with something, anything. His small body shook from cold and hunger. Again wanted to help. Again she could not. That evening she saw Sora sitting alone in a corner of the training yard. The other pups were resting together in small groups, sharing body heat. But no one wanted Sora near them. She was too nervous, too jumpy. She made the others uncomfortable, so she sat alone, freezing, while the others ignored her. Had seen enough. The next day, she requested a meeting with Pack Leader. She was made to wait for 3 hours in a cold hallway before he agreed to see her. His office was large and bare. Weapons hung on the walls. Trophies from old battles sat on shelves. Sat behind a desk made of black stone, his golden eyes fixed on with cold contempt. "You wish to speak," he said. It was not a question. Nodded. "I have been observing the training for 3 weeks. I have concerns." His eyes narrowed. Concerns. "The pups are not bonding," said carefully. "They are not learning to work together. They are learning to fear each other, to hurt each other. This will not make them good warriors." Was silent for a long moment. Then he stood up and had to force herself not to step back. He was so large, so powerful, he could kill her with one blow. "You have been here for 3 weeks," said slowly. "I have been training warriors for 40 years. My father trained warriors before me, his father before him. For 1,000 years, we have made the greatest soldiers in the galaxy using these methods." "But something has changed," said. "The pups are failing, you know this. That is why I am here." His lips pulled back from his teeth. It was not a smile. "The pups are failing because they are weak," he growled. "This generation is soft. They have not known true war. They have not known true hunger. We must make the training harder, not softer." "With respect, Pack Leader, I disagree. The pups are not soft. They are broken. There is a difference." Slammed his fist on the desk. The stone cracked. "You do not understand our ways, human," he snarled. "You are a prey species. You know nothing of what it means to be a predator. You know nothing of the pack. You know nothing of strength." Did not look away from his golden eyes. "I know that a pack is not just about who is strongest," she said quietly. "I know that true strength comes from trust, from caring for each other, from knowing that your will never abandon you." Laughed. It was a cold, harsh sound. "Pretty words, weak words, the words of prey." He sat back down and waved his hand dismissively. "Return to your quarters, human. Continue your observations, but do not waste my time with this foolishness again." Bowed and left. That night she sat in her cold room and made a decision. She would not wait for permission. She would not follow rules that were hurting the pups. She would find a way to reach them, no matter what said. She looked at the box of sweet ration bars she had brought from home. She thought about what the pups needed. Not more pain, not more fear. They needed something they had never experienced before. They needed kindness. Began to plan. Waited for the right moment. She watched the schedule of the academy carefully. She learned when the instructors took their breaks. She learned when the pups had free time. She learned which parts of the training yard were not watched. On the first day of the 4th week, she made her move. It was late afternoon. The instructors had finished the day's training and gone inside to eat and rest. The pups were left alone in the training yard for 1 hour before evening meal. Usually, they spent this time fighting among themselves or sitting in tired silence. Walked into the training yard. The pups noticed her immediately. They stopped what they were doing and stared. They had seen her before, the small human who stood in the corners and watched, but she had never come close to them. She had never entered their space. Did not look at them directly. She did not approach them. Instead, she walked to the middle of the yard, where the snow was packed hard from thousands of running feet. And then she did something that shocked every pup watching. She sat down. She simply sat down in the snow, crossed her legs, and settled herself like she was sitting in a warm room at home. The cold bit into her immediately. She could feel it through her thermal suit, sharp and painful, but she did not move. She did not shiver. She just sat. The pups watched with wide eyes. This made no sense to them. No instructor would ever sit on the ground. Sitting was weakness. Sitting was vulnerability. An enemy could attack you if you were sitting. Reached into her bag and pulled out a ration bar. She unwrapped it slowly and took a bite. The sweet taste filled her mouth. She chewed calmly, looking at nothing in particular. The pups did not move. They stood frozen, staring at this strange creature. What was she doing? Was this a test? A trick? Would instructors jump out and punish them if they reacted? Minutes passed. Finished her first ration bar and opened a second one. She ate slowly, peacefully, like she had all the time in the world. Then she did something even more strange. She looked at the pups and smiled. Not a smile that showed dominance. Not a smile that showed teeth and threat. Just a warm, gentle smile. The kind of smile that said, "I'm happy to see you. I mean you no harm." The pups had never seen anything like it. "I'm not here to test you," said softly. Her voice carried clearly in the cold air. "I am just tired, and I thought you might be hungry too." No one moved. No one spoke. The pups looked at each other with confused eyes. Then slowly stepped forward. The small pup walked toward with his ears flat against his head. His tail was tucked between his legs. Every line of his body said that he expected to be hurt. He expected this to be a trap, but he was so hungry. He had not eaten a full meal in days. And something about this human, something about her soft voice and warm smile made him want to take the risk. He stopped a few feet away from and waited. His whole body was shaking. Did not reach for him. She did not make any sudden moves. She simply held out a ration bar in her open hand and waited. Looked at the food. He looked back at the other pups who were watching with held breath. Then he took the ration bar. His clawed fingers were gentle as he took it from her hand. He unwrapped it quickly and bit into it. His eyes went wide. It was sweet. It was soft. It was the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. Without thinking, he sat down next to. A sound went through the watching pups. A gasp of surprise had broken every rule. He had approached a stranger. He had accepted food. He had sat down in a position of vulnerability. He had made himself weak. But nothing bad happened to him. No punishment came. He just sat there, eating his sweet food, next to the strange human who smiled at him. Was the next to move. The gentle female walked forward slowly. Her injured arm was still bandaged with torn cloth. Her eyes were tired and sad, but there was something new in them now, something like hope. Handed her a ration bar without speaking, took it and sat down on the other side. Then Sora came. The frightened female approached with small, careful steps. When held out a ration bar, Sora's hand was shaking so badly she almost dropped it, but she took it, and she sat. One by one, the pups came forward. They came slowly at first, then faster. Each one took a ration bar. Each one sat down in the snow around. Soon only was left standing. The large pup watched from a distance. His arms were crossed. His face was angry. This was wrong. This was weakness. The human was making them all soft and stupid. He should report this to the instructors. But he did not move to leave. He stood and watched, and something in his chest hurt in a way he did not understand. Looked at him. She did not call out to him. She did not wave him over. She just looked at him with those warm brown eyes and held up a ration bar. Wanted to refuse. He wanted to walk away and prove that he was strong. But his stomach was empty. His body was tired. And somewhere deep inside, in a place he tried to ignore, he was so lonely. He walked forward. He took the ration bar, and he sat down with the others. For a long time, no one spoke. The pups ate their sweet food in silence. They sat close together, their fur touching, sharing warmth. Some of them had never been this close to each other without fighting. It felt strange. It felt scary. It felt good. Finally spoke. Her voice was quiet and hesitant. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "We are nothing to you. We are not your pack." Thought about her answer carefully. "On my world," she said slowly, "we believe that everyone can be pack. It does not matter what you look like. It does not matter how strong you are. What matters is that you care for each other, that you help each other, that you never leave anyone behind." The pups looked at her with confusion. "But the weak slow down the strong," said. His voice was rough, but there was uncertainty in it. "If you help the weak, you make yourself weak." Shook her head. "No, if you help the weak, you make them stronger, and when they are stronger, they help you. That is how true packs work. Everyone lifts everyone else." "That is not the way," Sora whispered. "Maybe it should be," said softly. "Maybe that is why you are all so sad and tired and hurt, because the way is breaking you instead of building you." The pups were silent. They looked at each other. They looked at the human sitting among them. They thought about her words. In the shadows at the edge of the training yard, a large figure watched. Pack leader had come to check on the pups, and he had seen everything. He had seen the humans sit in the snow. He had seen the pups go to her one by one. He had seen them eat together, sit together, share warmth like true. It was wrong. It was against every tradition. He should stop it immediately. But something held him back. Something in the way the pups looked at each other. Something in the peace that had settled over the training yard. He turned and walked away silently. He would watch. He would wait. He would see what this human was really trying to do. And in the training yard, surrounded by young who had never known kindness, smiled and handed out more ration bars. This was only the beginning. The weeks that followed changed everything. Met with the pups every afternoon during their free hour. At first, they just sat together and ate and talked. The pups asked her questions about humans, about Earth, about how humans train their soldiers, answered honestly, and the pups listened with wide, curious eyes. Then slowly, she began to teach them. She started with something simple. She called it a trust fall. She asked to stand with his back to and fall backward without looking. "We'll catch you," said. Looked at her like she was crazy. Was the one who pushed him down every day. Was the one who took his food. Why would catch him? But just smiled and nodded encouragingly. Closed his eyes. His whole body was shaking. Then he let himself fall. And caught him. The large pup looked almost as surprised as he had caught him without thinking. Some instinct had made him reach out and grab the small pup before he hit the ground. "Why did you catch me?" asked, his voice shaking. Did not have an answer. He sat back on his feet and looked away, confused by his own actions. "You caught him because you care about him," said quietly. "Deep down, you do not want to see him hurt. That feeling is not weakness. That feeling is what makes a true pack. They did more trust exercises after that. They fell into each other's arms. They led each other blindfolded through obstacle courses. They carried each other on their backs across difficult terrain. Slowly, something began to change. The pups stopped fighting each other during training. When one of them fell, the others helped them up instead of laughing. When one of them was tired, the others slowed down to stay with them. The instructors noticed but did not understand what they were seeing. Taught them new ways to think about strength. On my world, she told them one afternoon, the strongest soldiers are not the ones who fight alone. They are the ones who fight for each other. When you know that your will never abandon you, you become brave. When you know that someone will always have your back, you become strong. She paired them up in new ways. She put with the largest with the smallest. At first complained. "Why must I work with the runt?" he growled. "He slows me down." Looked at him calmly. "Is small, yes, but he is fast. He can fit into spaces you cannot. He can see things you miss. He is not a burden, he is a gift. You just have to learn how to use his strengths instead of focusing on his weaknesses." She was right. When stopped trying to do everything himself, he discovered that was an amazing scout. The small pup could move silently through any terrain. He could spot danger before anyone else. He could find paths that no one else saw. And discovered something too. He discovered that having a large, strong at his back made him braver. He took risks he never would have taken before because he knew would protect him. The same thing happened with the other pups. With her gentle nature became the group's healer. She learned to bandage wounds and ease pain and comfort the scared. At first, the other pups were embarrassed to show weakness in front of her, but taught them that needing help was not shameful. "Every warrior gets hurt," she said. "Every warrior needs healing. Gift is just as important as strength, maybe more important. Without healers, there are no survivors." Sora, freed from her constant fear, began to show her true abilities. She had a mind like a sharp knife. She could look at a problem and see solutions that no one else saw. She could plan 3 steps ahead. She could find the weakness in any defense. "Sora is your strategist," told the group. "Listen to her, follow her plans. Her brain is more powerful than any weapon." The pups began to work together like they never had before. In group exercises, they moved as one unit. They communicated without words, just looks and gestures. They protected each other, supported each other, celebrated each other's successes. And every morning, when walked into the training yard, something beautiful happened. The pups would see her coming. They would break formation, ignoring the shouts of the confused instructors. They would run to her, surrounding her, their tails wagging and their voices raised in happy greeting. At first was embarrassed. She tried to make them stop. It was not proper military behavior. But the pups would not stop. They could not stop. For the first time in their lives, they had someone who cared about them, someone who saw them as more than just training tools, someone who believed they could be strong and kind at the same time. They loved her. It was as simple as that. Pack Leader watched all of this with growing concern. He had allowed the humans' activities to continue because he was curious. He wanted to see what would happen, but now he was worried. The pups were changing. They were becoming soft. They did not fight each other anymore. They helped the weak instead of leaving them behind. They sat together at meals and slept close together at night. This was not the way. One evening, confronted in the hallway outside her quarters. "You have made them soft," he growled. "They act like pets, not warriors. They run to you like lost pups seeking their mother." Did not back away from his anger. She stood her ground and looked up at him calmly. "They are not soft," she said. "They are connected. There is a difference." "Connected?" Laughed bitterly. "They care more about each other's feelings than about winning. That is not what warriors do." "Is it not?" asked. "Tell me, Pack Leader, when you fought in the great battles of your youth, did you fight alone, or did you fight beside who would die for you?" was silent for a moment. Old memories flickered in his golden eyes. "That was different," he said finally. "We were bonded through blood and pain, through shared suffering. And these pups are bonded through trust and love," said. "The result is the same. They will fight for each other. They will die for each other. Is that not what you want?" Shook his head. "Pretty words, but words mean nothing. The bonding trials are coming in 3 weeks. That is where we will see the truth. That is where your soft pups will fail." He turned and walked away. Watched him go. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her face calm. The bonding trials. She had heard about them, a week of survival in the frozen wilderness. Many pups did not survive. The weak were left behind. The frightened broke. It was the ultimate test of strength. But it was also a test of something else, something they had forgotten. It was a test of pack. Walked to the training yard where the pups were waiting for her. They gathered around her, their faces happy, their tails wagging. They did not know what was coming. "The bonding trials are in 3 weeks, told them. "It will be the hardest thing you have ever done. Many pups from other groups will fail. Some will not survive." The pups looked at each other with worried eyes. "But you will not fail," continued. "You will not fail because you have something the other groups do not have. You have each other. You have trust. You have love." She looked at each of them in turn. At who was no longer small and scared, at who was no longer angry and alone, at Sara and all the others. "You are a pack," said, "a true pack, and a true pack cannot be broken." The pups stood a little taller. Their eyes grew a little brighter. They believed her. They believed in themselves. And in 3 weeks, they would prove her right. The transport ships carried the pups high into the frozen mountains of Prime, watched from the academy as they disappeared into the clouds. Her heart ached. She wanted to be with them. She wanted to protect them. But this was their test. They had to face it alone. The bonding trials were simple in concept but brutal in execution. Each group of pups was dropped into hostile territory. They had to survive for 7 days. They had to cross 50 kilometers of frozen wilderness. They had to reach the extraction point before time ran out. The wilderness was full of dangers. Savage predators hunted in the snow. Deep cracks in the ice could swallow a pup without warning. Storms could freeze exposed skin in minutes. And the academy had placed simulated enemies along the route, instructors in combat gear who would attack without mercy. In past years, the survival rate was 85%. 15% of pups never made it out. Their bodies were recovered after the trials, frozen and broken. Pack leader had assigned pups to the most dangerous sector, the longest route, the steepest mountains, the most enemy encounters. He wanted to prove that her methods were failures. Understood this, she accepted it, her pups were ready. The first day, the pups moved fast. Sora had studied maps of the territory, and she led them along a path that avoided the main dangers. Scouted ahead, his small body moving silently through the snow. Stayed at the back, watching for threats. When they stopped to rest, they huddled together for warmth. They shared their food equally. No one took more than their share. No one complained about being tired. On the second day, they encountered their first enemies. 3 instructors in combat gear burst from behind ice formations, attacking without warning. In other groups, this kind of ambush caused panic. Pups ran in different directions. They fought alone and were picked off one by one. But pups did not panic. Sora shouted quick commands, and 2 other large pups formed a line to meet the attack. The smaller pups circled around to flank the enemies, pulled the wounded to safety. In less than 5 minutes, the fight was over. All 3 instructors were down. All 12 pups were still standing. They moved on without celebration. They knew there would be more challenges ahead. On the 3rd day, the rockslide happened. They were crossing a narrow mountain pass when the ice above them cracked. Massive chunks of frozen rock came crashing down. The pups ran, but they could not all escape. was caught. A boulder struck his leg, shattering the bone. He screamed in pain as he fell. In any other group, he would have been left behind. The weak do not slow down the strong. That was the way. But this group was different. Did not even hesitate. He turned back into the falling rocks, grabbed and threw the small pup over his shoulder, ran to them with bandages ready. Sora shouted for the others to find shelter. When the rock slide ended, they gathered in a small ice cave. His leg was badly broken. He could not walk. He could not even stand. According to tradition, they should leave him, move on, complete the mission. Looked at the others. His face was hard with determination. "I will carry him," he said. No one argued. No one suggested leaving behind. They had learned too much from the human. They had learned that pack meant everyone. For the next 4 days, carried on his back, 40 kilometers through snow and ice, up mountains and down valleys, through enemy territory and past hunting predators. When grew tired, others took turns. Even the smaller pups helped, supporting between them when the terrain was too rough for carrying. On the 5th day, they ran into an enemy patrol of 6 instructors. The fight was harder than before. Sora was knocked down. Her shoulder was dislocated, but she kept shouting commands through the pain, popped the shoulder back into place while the battle raged around them. They won, they always won, because they fought together. On the 6th day, the ice broke. Was walking at the front of the group when the frozen surface of a lake gave way beneath her. She plunged into black water so cold it stopped her heart for a moment. She could not swim. She could not breathe. She was sinking into darkness. Every pup jumped in after her. Every single one. They found her in the dark water. They grabbed her fur and pulled her up. They dragged her onto solid ice and formed a circle around her, pressing their warm bodies against her frozen one. For an hour they lay there, sharing their heat with, keeping her alive with the warmth of their own bodies. When she finally opened her eyes, she saw 11 faces looking down at her with love and worry. "You came for me," she whispered. "We will always come for you," said. His voice was rough with emotion. "You are Pack." On the 7th day, they reached the extraction point. Pack leader was waiting for them. He stood with other instructors, expecting to see a broken group, expecting to see survivors who had abandoned the weak. Instead, he saw something that made his breath catch in his chest. 12 pups walked toward him, all 12. They were battered and bruised. Some were limping, carried on his back, and others supported in Sora. But they were all there, all alive, all together. And they were smiling. Other groups had already arrived. Many were missing members. Some had lost half their pups. The survivors looked hollow and broken, traumatized by what they had experienced. But's group looked different. They looked tired, yes, but they also looked proud. They looked connected. They looked like a true pack. Walked toward them slowly. The pups stopped and waited, standing close together. "You made it," he said. His voice was strange, quiet. "We all made it," corrected him. "Together." Looked at still on his back. He looked at barely able to stand. He looked at Sora holding her injured shoulder. "You should have left the wounded behind," he said, but there was no anger in his voice, only wonder. "No," said, his voice was weak but clear. "We should not have, they would not leave me, I will never leave them." For a long moment, Pack Leader was silent. He remembered his own bonding trials decades ago. He remembered watching fall and doing nothing. He remembered the guilt that had haunted him ever since. These pups had done what he could not do. They had faced death together. They had refused to leave anyone behind. They had proven that strength and love were not opposites. Slowly lowered himself to one knee. It was a gesture of deep respect, rarely given to anyone. The other instructors gasped in shock. "I was wrong," said. His voice was rough with emotion. "You have become what we forgot we could be." The pups stared at him, too surprised to speak. Then they heard a sound behind them, running footsteps in the snow. burst through the crowd of instructors. She had been waiting for hours, watching for their return. When she saw them, all 12 of them, alive and together, tears streamed down her face. The pups saw her coming. They did not wait. They did not think about military protocol. They sprang from their formation and ran to her. They surrounded her, howling with joy, pressing against her, nearly knocking her over with their love. Their tails wagged. Their voices filled the air with happy sounds. They were crying too, tears freezing on their fur. And this time, something new happened. Pack leader walked forward. He looked at this small human who had changed everything. He looked at the pups who loved her, and for the first time in his long life he understood. He knelt beside her and bowed his head. "Welcome to our pack, Commander," he said. One by one, the other instructors came forward. They knelt in the snow around the human and the pups. They raised their voices in the ancient howl of welcome, a sound that had not been heard for generations. Stood in the center of it all, surrounded by beings who had hated her just months ago. Now they saw her as one of their own. Now they understood what she had been trying to teach them all along. The strongest pack is not the one that abandons the weak. The strongest pack is the one that makes the weak strong. Years later, statues of Commander would stand on a dozen worlds. She would be shown sitting in the snow, surrounded by pups, a ration bar in her outstretched hand. And every year, on the anniversary of her first day at the academy, warriors across the galaxy would observe a sacred tradition. They would sit in the snow, share food with the young, and remember the human who taught wolves how to love. But that was the future. Right now, in this moment, there was only joy. There was only love. There was only a pack finally complete, finally whole. And at its heart, smiling through her tears, was the human who had made it all possible.